happy Monday morning. We're really excited to share with you guys today some fun tips for taking care of orchids. We'll also be taking a look at our blog to look at GCMS testing and why it's so important. So let's go ahead and get started.
Are we started? Essential oils definitely can help.
We like giveaways.
We do like giveaways. Forget about the dishes, forget about the laundry, forget about all of that for a minute. That's the same with essential oils, you guys. You have to figure out what works for you. You're gonna see a huge difference,
I won't ever be able to not love that introduction. It's my favorite. Every time it ends, I want to say huge difference. So fun. Let's go ahead and see who's tuning in today. It looks like we've got a few people joining us this cold Monday morning. Erin says good morning. Jen says hi Emily. Hi Jen. How's it going? Jessie says hi Emily from Maryland. Oh, and Siv says good afternoon from Norway. Wonderful. Thank you for joining. It is really cold here this morning. We were just talking about that. I had ice on my windshield this morning and I'm not happy about it. And we're all cuddled by our little heater today. So how's the weather where you're at? And who's joining us from Instagram?
We have Becky Bixler says hi from Alabama. Maddie Lynn 326 says good morning from New Jersey. Nico and Maddie are here sending lots of love your way.
Oh.
Keep calm, get my oils on says good morning Emily from Vancouver, Washington. Jen LBS says hi from still hot Alabama.
Ooh.
And Jenny Lynn 75 says good morning from Michigan, Emily, Katrina, and Danny.
Oh, so sweet. Good morning, everyone. I am in that limbo phase of, am I really excited that it's, cooling down, or am I still desperately clinging to summer? I haven't decided, and it really depends on the day. Julia says, I'm very excited about today's topic. I feel like I don't know much about it except that it's important. Well, good, Julia. We're really excited about today's topic as well. So let's see. Before we get started talking about orchids with Katrina and talking about our blog, let's go ahead and start with our What's in a Name game.
Alrighty, here comes the music.
Let's see, guys. Danny, can you pronounce it? Because I love the way you pronounce Latin names.
Yes, it's Syzygium aromaticum.
Exactly.
Syzygium aromaticum?
Sounded pretty spot on.
Yeah, I like it. Oh, I'm seeing a right answer.
This is probably one of the hardest ones I've ever seen because it just doesn't seem.
There's not a lot of hints, is there, as to what it could be?
Sometimes in the word you'll see the word.
Yes, like Dracus carota.
Yeah. Carota. All right, guys, we have 13 seconds. That's not a lot of time.
13 seconds. And we've got a lot of right guesses, you guys, so keep them coming. You've got time. Okay, you guys, today's is clove bud. So exciting. All right, I love clove bud. It's especially this time of the year. It just smells so nice and just reminds me of the holidays. It's warm and delightful and lovely.
Clove buds to me look like some of the studs I've seen in people's ears.
Oh, that doesn't look comfortable.
No, it
Let's
doesn't.
be
But
honest.
I've seen some clove buddy looking ears.
All right.
If you have one, go ahead and tell us.
Okay, today's winner is Sarah Queen from YouTube. Congratulations,
Yay,
Sarah.
Sarah!
You will get a bottle of clove bud. Just email cs@planttherapy.com and we'll get you taken care of. Congratulations.
Yay.
Yay! Alrighty, next we're going to be talking about orchids with Katrina, and I am so excited about this, you guys. I had a brief sneak peek of what this conversation would entail on Friday, and I have been looking forward to it all weekend long. I am not a green thumb, unfortunately, and I'm hoping Katrina will rub some of her magic off on me. So.
All right.
Yay!
Yay! Katrina, let's welcome Katrina! All right, she's getting mic'd up. So, I think I just have to say that Katrina has always told me that orchids are really easy to take care of. I think she is lying.
I'm not lying, Danny. I think the important thing to remember about orchids is they're not like your regular houseplant. They're tropical flowers and they need some really specific care, but once you have figured out what that is, they're really easy to deal with.
All right. Try to convince me.
I think you're just magical.
I know, thanks. So I brought 3 different stages of orchids that I think we're all used to experiencing. A lot of us get orchids as gifts, and they're at grocery stores and they're everywhere. And we get them looking more like this, where they have the beautiful flowers, and then they sort of turn into this, where they're dry and limp and dying. So we're going to talk about why that happens and what you can do to fix it. So first I want to talk a little bit about just the orchids. So like I said, these are tropical plants, and what's super interesting about them is they're actually air plants in the wild, and it's really interesting if you ever want to Google image orchids in the wild. They actually grow on trees, and a lot of times they grow horizontally on trees as well. So cool. So when they're in a pot like this and they're vertical, this isn't like their natural environment. So we have to kind of make this environment as comfortable as possible for them. So if we take this guy out here,
oh my!
So you can see right here are the roots. Okay, these are really nice looking roots. They're green. They're pretty firm if you touch them.
Here, I'm gonna zoom
They're
in
very
there.
firm, you guys. They're lovely roots.
And this one is potted in bark right here. So what I'm gonna do when these flowers dry and fall off, which they're going to do pretty soon actually, I think these may have a couple weeks left, is I'm going to repot this. So this is my first recommendation to any orchid owner, is when the blooms have finally come off, don't let it sit in this medium that it's been in, because honestly we don't know how long it's been in this bark. You know, it could have been sitting in this for a couple years. The bark may have started deteriorating. It's not absorbing as well. Sometimes it'll get fuzzy on top, like there's some mold coming on. It's really good when the blooms are done to just put it in a new medium. Now you can get orchid potting soil at most garden centers, but there's actually a lot of really great online retailers that are specific for orchids, and there's a lot more choices because they can do more than bark. They can do different types of clay and beads and sands and different types of moss, so don't limit yourself to just bark. So let's see, so when the flowers come off, I would just take this out. You would want to take the roots out really carefully because they snap very easy. And if they snap, you can cause an open wound on your orchid, and then it can get infected. So repotting is very important, but you have to be very careful when you're doing it. So that's my first recommendation. Don't leave your orchid in the same medium that you had at the store, okay? And then the second one that's really big that I found very helpful is this kind of pot here. It's not really ideal. It's nice that it's clear because, again, orchids are air plants, so their roots can actually produce chlorophyll, which is what's turning them green. So they don't have to have light, but it does give them that nice healthy green color, but they do need air. So if they're in a pot like this that doesn't have air, other than what they're getting down here from the drainage holes, they might suffocate. So that's another issue you want to be aware of. So what you can do is you can either get a pot that's specific to orchids, and it'll have slits going along the sides that are really nice, or easier, you could just take a drill or a nail and punch holes in here, obviously when the orchid's not in there. And then you repot
I'm glad you said that, because I would totally just go to town.
And then your roots are getting a lot of great ventilation, and they're getting light. And then that's why a lot of orchids are put back into decorative pots, because you wouldn't want to ever pot an orchid in something like this. It's going to suffocate the roots, and then it's going to die. So before we go on, let's see if there's any questions, because I'm not really paying attention to what people are saying, but I want to know if you have any concerns at this point.
I'd like to point out Julia's comment on YouTube. She says, Danny is right, Katrina is lying.
Whatever. I think once you guys, if you really, really want your orchids to stay and you just do these tips, they do come back every year. Okay, so there is something specific. There's 2 things you could do when the flowers are gone. So what I like to do personally is when the flowers are gone, I cut this whole rod off. And the reason I do that is because once the flowering, the blooming cycle is done, it's an excellent time for the plant to work on its leaves and its roots so that it will come back better. If you want to try to rebloom, what you would do is you would cut about a centimeter up from this last node that's right here above the last flower. So you see it's a little bump that's right there. So underneath that has the potential of branching off and creating more blooms. And that would happen anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months after you would just cut this part off right here. So people like to do that. I don't like to do that because when you're forcing the orchid to try and branch off and rebloom, it's putting a lot of energy there instead of down here. And I like these to come back really nice every year, so I really want it to focus on what's going on down here, if that makes sense. So, but that's a personal choice. Cutting it off at the stem right there isn't going to hurt it. It might not rebloom though, so you're kind of taking a risk there.
Amber's asking, do they have to be kept at a certain temperature? Mine seems to die very easily, but we keep our house pretty cold.
They don't really like cold temperatures. And actually, the only time you should really expose them to cold temperatures is really during this time of the year, like naturally during fall when the flowers have come off and you've gotten rid of the spike. If you're trying to rebloom, then don't do this. But if you've gotten rid of the spike, because when it's exposed to slightly cold temperatures, not like outside freezing cold, but just slightly more cold, the plant's going to know that it's time for fall, and that means it's time to start working on this down here. But if your home is normally very cold, I mean, this is a tropical plant and it will struggle with that.
Oh, I love that Anna says, I feel like I can try an orchid now. Always wanted one but felt intimidated. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. They're really not that hard. It's just super important to repot them, have them in the right media. And again, you can find amazing things online. Like, this is a hobby. There are a lot of people who are very passionate about this. And because of that, there's a lot of industries that really offer a lot of great different mediums, tools, pots specifically designed for orchids. So it's a lot of great resources. So now we're going to go to this guy. So this is a very weak orchid that I got from the store. But I wanted to point out a few things. So this leaf here, I know it looks pretty bad, but it's actually very healthy. And what happened here, I think, was in the store, it had just been slammed up against something. It wasn't packaged right because the leaf itself is nice and strong, but it's just falling over. So you also have to know the specifics of the orchid that you're getting. Like, was it crammed next to a bunch of other orchids in the store? Has it been on the shelf for a long time? All these things can affect the way that it looks. But if the leaves are nice and green and they're leathery and plump, then your orchid is perfectly healthy. Just because it doesn't have a spike or a bloom, that doesn't mean that it's not healthy. Now this one, I had repotted in peat moss, only peat moss, because I'm doing an experiment. So I don't know how this is going to work out. But
no plants were injured in the making of this video.
But I repotted this one in peat moss, and there's holes in here, so I drilled these holes in. And then you have the roots that you can see, so they're getting plenty of air. If I take them out of this pot, sometimes they can get plenty of light. They like indirect light. If they have too much direct light, the leaves can burn, and that will cause yellowing, and they'll fall off.
How often do you take them out of the decorative pot to just get some air?
I take them out of their decorative pot once a week.
Okay.
So watering is another big deal for orchids. So there's two big main thoughts on this. The first one is, of course, the ice cube method. That's what usually will come on the directions, do a few ice cubes. I think that works best right when you get your orchid from the store and it's looking beautiful. But when it's done flowering and it really needs care on the roots and the leaves, I don't like doing ice cubes because it's not natural for the orchid. Again, they're tropical flowers. Having that icy cold water, it just doesn't make sense to me. but it is good because it's a slow release of water, so you're not going to suffocate the roots. So you have to decide what's best for you, and also ice cubes are super convenient because the next way to water isn't very convenient. But this is the way that I like to do it, that I found to be a lot more effective. So you're going to take your little guy out, and what you're going to do is actually submerge it in water for about 5 to 10 minutes. So I like to do room temperature water. I'm going to take this, I put it in a bowl of just water for about 5 minutes and just let it soak there. Then I take it out, I'm going to put it on like a rack, like a draining rack, so that it all drains out, and then I'm going to let it kind of dry out a bit, and then I'll put it back in here, and I do that once a week.
Once a week. Okay.
The fact, just knowing that they're in air, like the roots need as much more air than what a regular plant
Yeah,
has, is
and
huge.
that's
Yes,
so important. A lot of times you'll find when you're getting ready to repot your orchid for the first time and it's coming out of the store, a lot of those roots might be rotten. So if they're rotten, they're going to be squishy, and they're going to be brown, and sometimes they'll just be plain dead. And then you just get rid of those. Sometimes it's a lot. Sometimes you're really getting rid of the bulk of the roots, and there's only going to be a few roots left, but a few healthy roots is better than a bunch of dead ones, because what those soggy roots are going to do is retain that water, so there's going to be more water sitting in there that can damage the other roots. Okay.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just going to say, I thought you were going to the next orchid.
I am.
Oh. This one
You
is-
guessed right.
Here it
This one
comes.
is sad and scary.
So this orchid was upstairs in our office, and it's funny, I was looking for it last week. I was like, oh, where's Nyla's orchid? I know it's here somewhere. And then I looked up and I was like, oh no, because it needs some help. But a lot of us experience this happening to our orchids, right? We get it and they're beautiful, and then all of a sudden they're just floppy. So looking at it right away, there's a few things that I would do. One, I would get rid of these, right? I would just cut them right at the base. They're already dried off. When they're dry like this, like totally brown, they're not going to rebloom. That's just the plant telling you, I'm not going to rebloom, just cut me off. So I would cut that off. And then the second thing I would do, well, first I would repot it in a new medium. But when the leaves are floppy and not leathery, but
Yeah, they're kind of wrinkly. You
Yeah.
can't see it very
Yeah.
well on the camera, but
it's like they're
they look
puckering
dead.
a little bit in spots. That's dehydration, for sure, like absolutely. So I did want to take this out though, so we could look at its roots. When you do take an orchid out, never take it out from its leaves. Try to always take it out from these sticks that are here. Sorry, Jerry, I'm gonna make a mess real quick.
Worth it. Yeah.
It's worth it.
So let's
Save that orchid.
let's see what we got going on under here.
Oh wow.
So all of these down here are completely dry.
Wow.
So, but if you look right here, look at that. That's a perfect like little root that's coming through. Here's another one coming through. And I
Here, I'm
don't know
gonna
what the
zoom in
center
there.
looks like right here, but there might be some more. What I would do first, I'd repot it, and then I would submerge it. I'm saying I would, like this is what I'm going to do for this orchid. I'm going to submerge it so it
She's
gets
gonna save the baby.
so it gets hydrated again, and then probably in a couple days I'll relook at the roots again, because first I'd want to see what a good watering would do to this. It might help these roots out, but they are very dry and very brittle, and nothing like these kind of roots like that we see here. We want big plump fresh roots. Otherwise, this is what's going to happen. So, but you can clearly see that this happened because it's dehydrated. So all it needs is a good soaking and probably some fresh medium. And then ideally too, we'd get some slits in here or some holes so it can breathe a little better. And then, you know, if it's kept up and watered regularly, then it should come back next season for another blooming cycle.
Woohoo. So do they bloom just once a year? Are they a once a year bloomer?
It depends on the type of orchid, because there's many different types of orchids. These are called
Phalanges.
I knew the name, and I'm having a brain fart for a sec. But the common name, I'll say that, is the moth orchid. So these are the ones you typically see in the grocery stores. These usually bloom just once a season, but they can last weeks to months. You know, I mean, it just depends. If these are difficult to people, it's because they kind of have their own personality and they kind of do their own thing. They're each very unique. So they can rebloom again if you force reblooming, or if it's a species of orchid that does rebloom throughout the year. But for the typical orchid that we get at the grocery store, it's going to be one good season of blooms. They're going to stay beautiful for a while, and then it's going to be done, and they're going to need to work on their roots and leaves to do it again.
Do you change out the medium like yearly, like after it blooms every year?
So usually when you buy a medium, it'll tell you when you should, but a year or every 2 years is a good idea, unless you see that there is some fungus or something growing on like the bark, like this one, like it's got like that white kind of, that just that icky stuff. Then I would just, change it, because you want them to be happy. You don't want them to be an icky stuff. But let's see, so are there any questions? I think there's so much to talk about with orchids. I mean, like I said, there's a whole community of really passionate people that have just YouTube channels and books and blogs and everything. You can really get every question you have answered about orchids. You just have to look for it. Just don't treat these like they're regular houseplants, because they're not. They might seem like they kind of fall into that succulent cactus family, but they don't. They have very different requirements. But once you get those requirements down, they can really last for a really long time.
Well,
Like, how long can orchids live? Like
Your whole
hundreds
lifetime.
of years?
They can, yeah.
Are you serious?
They can last a whole lifetime. Indoors, it's different. It depends on your environment and all the different factors that go into having plants indoors. Out in the wild, they can live 100 years. So let's see here. Can you... an amaryllis on one of the lives? Maybe. We have 4 more of these going on. So actually, if there is a specific plant that you want me to talk about, please just let me know.
Bamboo one.
Oh, a bamboo one would be excellent
yes.
too. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we'll do that. So let's see. Melissa says, I have a huge orchid plant with long leaves that have a spiky tip. It's only bloomed once 2 years ago. Any tips? So for that, I would look at all the different factors. First, we got to look at the medium, if you've repotted it. Then I would look at the pot that it's in to make sure that everything's getting oxygen that it needs to. Fertilizer is another really big one. These have specific fertilizer that you can get at most garden centers, and they have different requirements, but usually it's once a week or once every couple weeks. Then you add a little bit of fertilizer to the water you're submerging it in, and that could make a big difference too. It might not be blooming because of a nutrition deficiency, but the fact that it has nice leaves still, and if it has nice roots, it can bloom. It's just missing something. So you just might need to put the puzzle together and figure out what your orchid is needing.
I think Caitlin is watching, and she said Caitlin is our customer service or customer satisfaction guru / pet safe.
Animal aromatherapist.
Anyway, she says orchids are part of the Orchidaceae family and are perfectly safe for your cat to be around.
Yeah, these are actually, finally, we have an edible plant on here. You can eat orchids. A lot of times,
I've had orchids on like salad. And
they'll be beautiful
things like
decoration, and I don't know what they taste like. I've never eaten one, but you can, and they make beautiful decorations. I know there's a lot of folklore about eating the roots, and some species of orchids have like a tubular sort of function on the bottom that holds a lot of moisture that I know can be eaten as well. So I guess that's just a personal choice if you want to. But you can, yeah. And so it's fun. It's finally a pet-friendly plant, Phalaenopsis, that was the word I was looking for. Thank you, April Marie. These are Phalaenopsis orchids. And so these are the common ones that you're going to find.
Well, I feel a whole lot more prepared to have an orchid now. I feel like I could maybe handle it.
I hope I've inspired somebody at least to not throw their orchid away when it gets to this point. This doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't need to go in the garbage. Maybe it just needs something a little bit different, and it'll hopefully come back. And honestly too, like these leaves, even though it doesn't have that flower, I mean, the leaves are still beautiful and they're bright and green. The roots are really interesting. They can actually grow up out of the pot and grow vertical if it gets big enough, and that's fine if the roots start doing that. So they're just really neat plants. So yeah. I hope somebody goes and gets an orchid and gives it a shot, because they're a lot of fun.
There's some great comments from other viewers in there, guys. So go in there, look at, like Gwen specifically said, that Brad's Greenhouse in Canada has a great YouTube videos on for orchid lovers. So
Yeah,
check 'em out.
definitely. There's so many resources available if you really want to know how to do it. And, then you're going to have these awesome, unique conversation-starting flowers just all over your home. Oh, and I got to say one more thing before I forget. So I think this is the best time to get orchids from the grocery store because it's the time when all the flowers often are starting to fall off because it's becoming fall time. So I usually like to go to like a Smith's or an Albertsons, and they have, I call it the death row, the plant death row, where they have it like in the corner and they're the discounted plants. I got this one for $2.
Oh, wow.
And so because grocery stores are just going to toss them. So if you go and you look, a lot of times they'll have ones that have finished their bloom, but now you know how to bring it back for next year. So go save some orchids.
I'm feeling the pressure to go save an orchid.
Adopt an orchid
Adopt an orchid today.
by Plant Therapy.
That's right. So I hope this helped somebody. It's a lot of great information for plants and a lot of stuff that I just don't think people really realize. They need to be treated differently, but once you know how, they're pretty easy to take care of. I promise. I'm not lying.
So cool.
Yay!
Yay.
Thank you, Retha. Or Bretha. Katrina! Yay!
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I do think I will go buy an orchid from Death Row now because you have to, right? I mean, after you know how to take care of them, you got to save the babies. Alrighty, so next we are going to be talking a little bit about our blog on GCMS testing. So to find this blog, head on over to our About tab on the website and go down to the blog. And okay, and then you'll see our blog here on GCMS testing and why you need to care. So if you're not familiar with GCMS testing, what you can learn from the test, then I would definitely suggest heading to our blog and reading this one. We also have a few other blog posts on GCMS testing that share with you just a little bit about why it's important. Personally, as an aromatherapist, I really like to use GCMS tests to help tell more about the oil story, right? Because you can look at the chemical constituents and have a better understanding of what therapeutic properties the oil can bring to a blend or just on its own. So definitely there's a lot of benefits with GCMS testing, not just to verify purity and quality, but also to have a better understanding of how your essential oil is going to perform and what kind of benefits you can expect to receive from that essential oil.
That's one of my favorite things about Plant Therapy's oils, and we're not necessarily, well, I love the fact that every year our oils you were talking about the story. Mm-hmm. Every year the batch of oils we get has a different story. It can tell you how the year went, what just based on the constituents and how well they're doing in each batch.
And I love that you're bringing that up, Danny, because that's important to remember, right? Because one batch of oil can be very different from the next. The smell can vary a little bit just depending on the levels of the constituents in the essential oil, where it was grown, the time of year it was harvested, things like that. So it's important to make sure that you're taking the time to get familiar with GCMS tests. When you first view a GC, you may be a little bit overwhelmed by what you see, but we definitely have people on staff that are educated to help you have a better understanding of what you need to be looking for and how to understand those reports. So if you have questions, make sure to email CS or give us a call and we'd be happy to go over that with you. But definitely the more you familiarize yourself with GCMS reports, the more fascinating they become, the easier they are to understand, and the better your blends turn out, right? Because if you're looking to create a blend for a specific therapeutic property, it's always great to use the best essential oils that support that property that you're looking for. So definitely take the time to familiarize yourself, especially if you're wanting to learn more about essential oils and their chemistry. It's well worth the time that it takes to do a little studying there. So.
And if you guys haven't been over to the downloads page, it is a great place to find our constituent chart.
Yes.
that the aromatherapists have put together.
Yes, let's
And
go now, since
it
Danny's
is
talking about it.
Awesome.
Oh, I forgot we changed things up a little bit. So let's see here. Constituent chart, yay! Alrighty, so this is the chart that Danny is talking about, and it gives you a little bit of information on what kind of properties you would expect from these different constituents that are listed and the essential oils that they're commonly found in. So if you don't have this, make sure to pull it up and check it out. It's really, really thorough and very interesting, especially if you're looking to have a better understanding of constituents. So,
Yeah.
love it.
And there are so many constituents that can be in an oil.
Yes.
Does our constituent chart have every constituent that is
That's a good
available?
question. It does not list every constituent that's out there, but some of the most common constituents that you would be looking for, and ones that tend to be in larger amounts in essential oils. So for some of the minor constituents, you can definitely email us for more information. Robert Tisserand has a lot of great information as well, but this gives you a really good starting point to learn more about those constituents. So definitely check it out. Alrighty guys, well we are going to go ahead and do our PT Friends today. And I am so excited about this one because look at this little prize package. It is so cute. It has Idaho Spuds, which are little, I think they're marshmallow, right? Chocolate covered marshmallow candies.
Kind of. The marshmallows, I think it's got coconut. I love them. They are made here in Idaho.
And they're so cute, so definitely I'm excited about that. We've got the enamel pins, aroma pod, a cute little black hat, so definitely a fun giveaway to win. So let's see here. Okay, I think I'm going to go with this one today, just because it looks so lovely. So this is from Saskatchewan, Canada, and it says, "Dear Plant Therapy, thank you for all the EO safety information you provide. It makes being a loyal PT customer an easy choice. Keep doing what you do. This is a typical and disappearing prairie scene I grew up on the farm in Saskatchewan, Canada. Nothing beats a Canadian prairie summer day." And this is from Camille Flavel. Camille, email cs@planttherapy.com and we will get you your gift sent out. And this is such a beautiful picture. I love this. My in-laws live out in the country, and we just enjoy being out in the wide open spaces and getting to breathe the fresh air, and it's just so peaceful. So I love this. Thank you for sending it in to us.
And that's super cool because this just shows my ignorance. When I think of Canada, I think of like northern Idaho, the way that looks.
Yes, I would agree with that.
How cool that they have prairies as well.
Maybe we need to take a road trip, Danny, to to Canada and go see what all there is to offer.
On the road.
Yes. Oh, sign me up. I love it. Alrighty, guys. Well, today our question for you is, what are some things that can make an oil change? So definitely answer this question. I think we talked a little bit about this when we talked about GCMS. So what are some things that might impact an oil's fragrance or its chemical properties, chemical constituents, things like that? Be sure to click on the link to answer this question and you'll be entered for a chance to win.
And I do believe the blog has some helpful information for
Head on
any of
over
you.
to the blog. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Alrighty, guys. Well, don't forget that our body creams are 25% off, and this may be your last chance to get those.
Just saying.
So definitely, I would recommend it. They're delightful. And then also, our Spotlight oil is Petitgrain, and there's still 15% off going on this weekend. And but Katrina and Danny and Jerry and Retha will be back on Wednesday to talk to you guys a little bit more. I'm not sure about what, but it's going to be fun.
It may be about copaiba.
It may be about copaiba, so super exciting.
No, I may have forgotten to change that.
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
It's okay. Danny left me hanging, but it's all right. Alrighty, guys. Have a great Monday, and thanks for tuning in. Bye.